This message is brought to you by Alliance Bible Church located in Mequon, Wisconsin. Our vision is to captivate generations with the satisfying gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information about Alliance Bible Church or other resources, please check out our website, myabc.church.
I have never seen nor read The Lord of the Rings.
I have never seen nor read Lord of the Rings.
I have never seen nor read Lord of the Rings.
To be clear, it is not for lack of opportunity. It just does not interest me.
I didn't know that about you, Ashley. There has been no shortage of people willing to offer their thoughts on the subject of friendship. The always reliable Oscar Wilde once said, "A good friend will always stab you in the front." Actually, there's more profoundness to that than we might like to give credit for. Some of you, however, may prefer Linda Grayson's approach to friendship. She says, "There is nothing better than a friend unless it's a friend with chocolate." Friendship was a topic of consideration for the ancient Greeks. Euripides once said, "One loyal friend is worth 10,000 relatives." You know, if Thanksgiving was around on Euripides' day, you got to wonder what that dinner was like. One loyal friend is worth 10,000 relatives. What were your relatives like, Euripides? Let's see here. Yes, the renowned philosopher and confirmed narcissist Taylor Swift she's going to prove me right in just a moment here, views friendship like this. She says, "All you need to do to be my friend is like me." Henry Brooks Adams, very realistic about friendship. "Every man should have a fair-sized cemetery in which to bury the faults of his friends." Pretty good. Not sure who said this, but it does ring with a degree of truthfulness. "Best friends know how crazy you are and still choose to be seen in public with you." And the always witty and deceptively profound Groucho Marx once said this of friendship. He said, "When you're in jail, a good friend will be trying to bail you out. A best friend will be in the cell next to you saying, 'Boy, that was fun.'" This series is designed to help us think about Christianity on Main Street, in the trenches, in the day-to-day. Think about your weekly routine. When you get up on Monday morning, what are you going to see, experience? What are you going to do throughout the course of the next 7 days? And how do we approach those things in a Christian manner? What does Christianity look like in the day-to-day routines? This is what this series is about. We've tackled a number of questions. Today, we're going to explore the topic of friendship from 1 Samuel 18 through 20. Which is the most well-known story of friendship in the Bible, the friendship of David and Jonathan. We're going to look at this topic under three categories. We're going to look at the importance of friendship, the nature of friendship, and how to be the kind of friend you've always wanted. The importance of friendship, the nature of friendship, and how to be the kind of friend you've always wanted. First, the importance of friendship. Now, the importance of friendship is seen in how the author structures these three chapters. Sometimes we pay attention to grammar, syntax. Those are good things to look at. Word studies, that's all great too. Another thing to consider when we're interpreting the Bible is, how is this structured? How is this brought together? How is this material organized? That does convey a message to us as well. Now, let me set the context before we look at that. David has defeated Goliath. We know that story. God has given David great military success. The people all recognize this. They pour their love for and their appreciation out on him. All of that serves to inflame the king's jealousy. The king is Saul. Yes, he is furious at what has transpired, so much so that he tries to kill David 6 times. 6 times. So for David, this is the most dangerous time of his life. Now, what makes this even more dangerous is that Saul has appointed David to be a leader within his administration because he wants to keep a close eye on him. And David, because of that, is now living in Saul's household. So David never, ever, ever gets a respite from this unrelenting onslaught. To this point in David's life, this is the darkest season he's ever lived through. Now, immediately before this dangerous, threatening chapter in David's life, we have just a few verses that talk about his friendship with Saul's son, Jonathan. 1 Samuel 18. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic, even his sword, his bow, and his belt. And then again, after this very dangerous chapter in David's life, we have more about his friendship with Jonathan. At the end of chapter 20, Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'" So what do we have? At the beginning of 18, at the end of 20, at the beginning of 18, we have this covenant making of friendship. Okay, that's at the beginning, right before this very dangerous chapter in David's life. We have the covenant making of friendship. And then at the end, we've got it again. We've got covenant renewal of friendship. And in between is the turmoil of David trying to survive Saul's rage. By arranging the material this way, what is the biblical author saying? David's friendship with Jonathan bookends David's hardship with Saul. Bookends. We might not be familiar with those objects anymore because everything's gone digital. Those are the things that are on bookshelves, the big heavy things that you put books in between and you smash it together. It keeps the books upright, keeps them from falling off the shelf. Everybody know this. If you're under the age of 30, maybe you don't. Bookends, they keep the books upright. The passages on friendship literally bookend David's life of turmoil that happens in between. In other words, David's friendship with Jonathan keeps him upright while he deals with Saul's murderous attacks. Now, most of us have not experienced someone trying to kill us, but life is full of difficulties. If you live long enough, you'll suffer. We're going to have extensive trouble in life. Because the writer structures the story the way he does, I think he's trying to show us the importance of friendship for those seasons of life. It's friendship that keeps you upright. It's friendship that keeps you from falling over during times of suffering and adversity. There have been numerous studies conducted on the influence of friendship on one's health. The Atlantic did a study published under the title, "What Makes Us Happy?" One of the conclusions reached is that, contrary to conventional wisdom, it isn't stuff that makes us happy. It's not stuff that makes us happy. Their conclusion from their study is that happiness is directly attributed to close friendships. The New York Times published an article entitled "The Island Where People Forget to Die," which discusses life on the little-known island of Icaria in the Aegean Sea. Life expectancy rates on that island are substantially higher than in the United States. Obviously, numerous factors probably play into that, but the writer of this piece contends strongly that the social structure, the way relationships and friendships are formed and nurtured, is unlike what we have here. In that sense, friendship literally keeps them upright. Maybe what all these studies are discovering is what we already have in our Bibles. Friendship sustains your life. It makes life survivable. It makes life bearable. It keeps you upright during turbulent times. This is the importance of friendship. Now, before you give hearty amens to that, most of us probably have an understanding of friendship that needs refining. I'm going to be talking about the nature of friendship, and in so doing, you're probably, as you listen to this, are going to think to yourself, I'm not sure I have a single friend like that. I'm not sure that I am that kind of friend to anybody else. This is not meant to create a guilt trip on anybody in the room as we go through this. This is more me sounding the bell saying we need this. We need this. We need to be these kinds of people. We need these kinds of people in our lives. Because what David and Jonathan had is unlike what we see today. The story of David and Jonathan hints at numerous aspects to their friendship. I'm not going to draw out the ones that are kind of obvious to most of us. I am going to isolate 3 that are less obvious to us. 3 aspects to true biblical friendship. True biblical friendship is spiritual, committed, and humble. Let me walk through those. Number 1, the nature of true biblical friendship is spiritual. It's spiritual. In 1 Samuel 18, verse 1, we're told that Jonathan became one in spirit with David. Jonathan became one in spirit with David. Now, what's going on here? This is idiomatic Hebrew. This is more than having a really good vibe about somebody. You know that. Sometimes we have a really good vibe about somebody. We really feel good. It's feelings-based. That might be true of David and Jonathan. That's not what this is about. This is deeper than that. It's much deeper than that Jonathan and David felt good about each other. There are spiritual overtones to this friendship. They possess a strikingly similar posture before God. We're going to be looking at the extreme differences in background that these two had. Despite that, they enjoyed a shared connection with the Lord. They were both men after God's heart. Jonathan saw in David someone in tune with God as he was, someone who believes in God's greatness and dependability and priorities. You could say they shared a lot of theological similarities that fueled this friendship. Their commitment to the Lord undergirded their commitment to each other. Now, there's a paradox here, because if true friendship is spiritual in nature, then true friendship functions as a way to get us to depend on the Lord. But a friend is a means to that end. If that's so, then there's a tightrope that's walked. Here's what I mean by that. If you're a friend that I need to help me make progress in my Christian walk, there will be things that you need to say, there will be things that you need to do that cause me to depend on the Lord. But you've got to say and do those things that don't cause me to depend on you. In our culture, that's really upside down approach to friendship, because typically we think of a great friend as having something, possessing something, offering something within them we perceive we need that keeps us coming back to them. A personality we mesh with, a disposition we find attractive. And in the spaghetti strands of our heart's motivations, we approach friendship as a way to demonstrate to the other person how much they need you. Don't we subtly think, you need me. You need what I have to offer. Nobody can give you what I give you. That's not friendship. A true friend causes you to depend on the Lord, not them. They push you forward in dependency on God. They don't push you forward in dependency on them. They don't attempt to get you addicted to them. So friendship is going to be spiritual. You can't maneuver the friendship in such a way that others become dependent on you. Friendship gets friends to depend on the Lord. That's spiritual friendship. Think about your life. Who functions that way in your life? Who functions that way in your life? You have someone in your life that constantly pushes you forward in dependency on the Lord, not them, not what they have to offer, that pushes you forward in dependency on the Lord. How do you function that way in someone else's life? How do you function that way in someone else's life? The nature of true biblical friendship is, first of all, it's spiritual. Second, it's committed. In chapter 18, verse 3, we're told that Jonathan made a covenant with David. All right, what is this covenant of friendship they shared? In the business world, there's what you could call a consumer-vendor relationship. Let's make it very practical. Most of you probably have internet. Place of work, home. You have an internet service provider. They provide you with internet, and then you pay them for it. That is a consumer-vendor relationship. You will maintain that business relationship as long as you're satisfied with the service you receive for the price you pay. Sometimes things change. The service changes, the price changes, you no longer find it an acceptable arrangement, and so you go and you find another vendor who will give you the service you desire at a price you're willing to accept. That's the business world. The covenant world is different. A covenant relationship is different than a consumer-vendor relationship because in a covenant relationship, that is not a means to an end of fulfilling your individual desires. The covenant relationship is an end in itself. A covenant relationship is committed and enduring through the circumstances and in spite of the circumstances. So, for example, if you were in a covenant relationship with your internet service provider, you would remain in that relationship regardless of the service they offer and the price they charge. Why? Because in a covenant, it's not about satisfaction of personal desires. It's about maintaining the relationship. The service can change, the price can change, but the relationship cannot. David and Jonathan's friendship is a covenant friendship. In a covenantal friendship, your individual needs are put below your responsibility for the relationship and the thriving of the other person. Your needs come second, the relationship and the other person comes first. For so many years, I know it's hard to imagine, but for so many years, that's how family relationships and friend relationships functioned. It really is. But increasingly, and academicians and sociologists have been noting this now for years, consumer-vendor relationships are taking over the landscape of families and friends. Notice the rise of cancel culture within families. Family relationships, friend relationships, religious relationships are all done today on a cost-benefit analysis. If I'm getting my needs met, I'm happy to stay in the relationship. But if not, I'm out of here. Once upon a time, there was a commitment to the relationship regardless of what goods and services one was getting out of that relationship. So what's the point of all this? Well, the point is this: consumers are not friends. Consumers are not friends. We need friends, not consumers. Think about Jonathan. The moment he enters into this covenant with David, remember it happens at the beginning, before the 6 attempts on David's life. The moment he enters into this covenant with David, he starts incurring costs. Saul, the man who makes these attempts on David's life, is Jonathan's father. Saul's vitriol for David puts Jonathan in a very difficult position. None of his needs are being met. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place. These are perfect conditions for him to get out, but he doesn't. His needs, his desires are not as important as the thriving and flourishing of David. His needs are not as important as the friendship. Biblical friendship is covenantal in nature. So true friendship, spiritual friendship, biblical friendship is spiritual. A true friend helps you rely on God, not them. True friendship is committed. It's covenantal in nature. Your needs are not as important as the thriving of the other person or the permanence of the friendship. And third, true friendship is humble. True friendship is humble. Jonathan takes off his royal wardrobe. You notice that? He took off his royal wardrobe. He took off his royal armament, and he gives them to David. That is an incredibly powerful gesture. He's making a costly sacrifice. David was a nobody. He's not the oldest brother. He's not the strongest. He's not the best looking. He's the short runt towards the end of the litter. Jonathan is the son and heir of Saul. Jonathan and David are very much opposite. They have no business being friends. Jonathan is from the palace. David's from the field. Jonathan is educated. David is not. Jonathan's from the right kind of family. David is not. Jonathan is a soldier. David is a shepherd. Catch this. Jonathan is probably 30 years David's elder. If you read it carefully and you do the math, they're not even close to being the same age. So it says that Saul reigned for 40 years. David was 30 years old when he began to reign. This means David wasn't even born when Saul began to reign. 1 Samuel 13, towards the beginning of Saul's reign, his son Jonathan is already a leader in the military. So when you picture the friendship here, Jonathan is probably, 45 years old. David's 15 when all this is happening. So this 45-year-old son of the king, heir apparent to the throne, soldier, well-educated from a royal family in his prime, when he sees God is with David, he gets off his throne for a shepherd teenage boy from a rural, uneducated family. Jonathan is demonstrating unbelievable, incomprehensible humility in his covenant relationship with David. One pastor defines humility this way. Humility is having the wisdom to see what God is up to and being okay with it no matter how it affects you. Humility is having the wisdom to see what God is up to and being okay with it no matter how it affects you. Jonathan thought he'd be the next king. But he sees what God is up to. He sees God is with David every step he takes. He sees David is the true heir apparent to the throne, and Jonathan's okay with it. Even though on paper, Jonathan may be a better candidate and more suited to the office, he sees God is with David and he's okay with it. In a biography of the aforementioned Oscar Wilde, there's a discussion of Wilde's proposition that the good fortune of one's friends makes one discontent. A story is told of a devil crossing the Libyan desert, where he came to a spot where a number of junior demons are tormenting a holy hermit. And this holy hermit, this holy saint, is easily shaking them off. "What you are doing is too crude," says the devil. "Permit me for a moment." So he goes up to the holy hermit and he whispers in his ear, "Your brother has just been made Bishop of Alexandria." And a scowl of malignant jealousy comes across the face of the hermit immediately. "That," says the devil, "is the sort of thing I recommend." Leonard Bernstein, the great conductor of the New York Philharmonic, said it well. He was once asked, "What is the most difficult instrument to play in the orchestra?" He said without hesitation, "Second fiddle." I can find plenty of first violinists, but I can hardly get somebody to play second fiddle with the same enthusiasm. Jonathan does. That's a true friend. The nature of friendship is spiritual. They help you to depend on God more. They push you to the throne of God in prayer. They excite you to engage in God's word. They fan into flame your trust in the Lord. They don't get you to depend on them. True friendship is committed. True friends are more interested in the thriving of the other person than getting their needs met or desires satisfied. They're committed to the permanence of the friendship. And true friendship is humble. True friends play second fiddle with enthusiasm. They see what God is up to and they're okay with it no matter how it affects them. So how can we be the kind of friend we've always wanted? Our natural impulse at this point is to go shopping. We scour the field of potential friend candidates, looking for someone who fits the bill. Don't we? Isn't this your natural impulse? Who can be this for me? Now, once you've done that, what's happened? We've quickly reverted to the consumer vendor posture. Rather than approaching it that way, let's go a different route. How can we become this kind of friend? How can we become this kind of friend? Not who can be this for me, but how can we become this kind of friend? To whom can you be this kind of friend? Now, we have a resource Jonathan didn't have. Jesus is speaking in John 15, and look what he says. The language is intentional. He says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. In this way, we'd actually see Jonathan being a foretaste of Jesus. Jonathan laid down his life for his friend David. He did. Jonathan lost privileges. He lost comforts. He lost conveniences. Jonathan intentionally made his life harder in order to make David's life better. Through these wounds endured by Jonathan, David was released into his full potential. Think about how God used Jonathan's friendship with David to get David to the place that he would be. But there's something Jonathan and David didn't have, didn't know, that we have, that we know. Jesus came into the world to be the ultimate friend. Think about him. Jesus took off his robe and lost his throne. He took off his sword and became vulnerable. He lost his divine invulnerability. He died on the cross for our sins. And what does that mean? We become heirs not to a temporal earthly throne, but to an eternal heavenly one. Jonathan endured much to provide David with a life of flourishing. Jesus endured more to provide you with an endless life of even greater flourishing. Jesus made his life infinitely harder to make your life infinitely better. He made his life infinitely harder to call you friend. To the degree you see what Jesus did to make you his friend, to the degree you see what Jesus did to make you his friend, is the degree you'll go to be that kind of friend to somebody else. You will become the kind of friend you've always wanted as you experience and live inside the friendship Jesus has with you. Being the kind of friend you've always wanted is not about writing up a new list of just do-it goals. Being the kind of friend you've always wanted is about being taken into the love Jesus has for you in increasing depth. We love others because Jesus first loved us. The order is significant. In one of the previous churches where I served on staff, there was a family who was newer to the church. This family had very little in the way of church background. They had attended other churches very sporadically during their years growing up and into adulthood. But they showed up at our church and they visually appeared rough around the edges. Our staff and volunteer teams took care of them and their kids, and as time wore on, they began to open up about some of their struggles. One of those struggles was very deep financial troubles. And so we connected them to our care team who went to work in providing them with short-term financial support, and they sat down with them to do some financial counseling. Just really what a church does. Little did I know that in those moments, the deep impact that would have on them. They were so blown away by this, so surprised by it, it radically transformed this family. They began attending more and more frequently. They got involved. They began having their antennae up for families who were in this predicament that they knew so well. They became some of the best lovers of families who were down and out that I have ever seen. They loved on others because they were first loved by others. You will not be able to offer true friendship to others until you've experienced the true friendship of Jesus. To the degree you see what Jesus did to make you his friend, the degree to which you see you are his friend, is the degree you'll go to be that kind of friend to someone else. Let's pray. Jesus, your life is an amazing demonstration of true friendship. Your primary mission was to seek and save the lost, to bring sinners into union with the Father. And you did that for people who not at one point has ever met your needs. When you decided to make us your friends, you had an infinite deficit. And you did it all so that we could be reconciled to the Father. Your whole life, your whole ministry was marked by humility. You made your life infinitely harder to make ours infinitely better. And now you call us friends. It's an overwhelming truth to take in. But Jesus, help us experience our friendship with you, so that we will be the kind of friend to others we've always wanted. We need your help, Jesus. And we ask for it in your name. Amen.